on this issue, really in an attempt to launch Facing Addiction and end the silence around this issue. And Facing Addiction, where we as an organization are sort of, I think, a little bit unique, historically speaking, in the addiction space, is that, historically you have, lots of national organizations that do tremendous work on the addiction issue. Generally speaking, they tend to focus on specific pieces of the puzzle. So you have groups that focus on empowering the recovery community, and you have groups that focus on criminal justice reform, and you have groups that focus on healthcare and so on and so forth. Where Facing Addiction is a little unique is our mission is to really unite all of those different areas of interest, if you will, in the space, all those different fields that are working to address this issue, unite them behind a common agenda, unite them behind common cause. And as you were reading through the agenda, you can see that really this is an agenda that attempts to take on addiction as an issue in a comprehensive way. If you're going to tackle the addiction problem, you can't. You're not going to do it by just addressing one specific area of the problem. You have to approach it from a healthcare perspective. You have to reform the criminal justice system. You have to reduce stigma, both for those with a substance use disorder as well as for their family members, because I think families clearly suffer right along with this illness, along with those who are suffering. And too many of our families are suffering the ultimate loss from it. So that's what Facing Addiction is trying to do. We are working to bring all of those different pieces of the puzzle together to execute this sweeping agenda and to provide resources to communities and individuals who are desperately in need of help.
And I noticed your Addiction Resource Hub. That seems like a tremendous resource. Can you talk about that for a minute?
Oh, I'd be happy to. The Addiction Resource Hub, this is an attempt. There have over the years been different attempts to build centralized resources focusing on specific areas. So SAMHSA, for example, has a wonderful treatment locator, and other groups have done similar work. What the Addiction Resource Hub attempts to do is to bring all of the different resources that are available to those looking for help, either for themselves or for a loved one, recovery-related, treatment options, prevention programming, family supports, recovery supports, to bring it all together into one spot where you can go in there if you're looking for help for your loved one or they're looking for help, plug in your zip code, and out shoots at you all of the resources that are available to you, not just treatment options, but also recovery support and advocacy opportunities, and so on and so forth.
Yeah, I'm looking at it right now. It looks like a very impressive resource, and I'm going to share this with my clients. I'm the co-owner of the Center for Compassionate Recovery. We do outpatient opiate addiction treatment in Connecticut, and I think this is I haven't really gotten into it yet, but it sure looks like a tremendous resource and a quite a project you guys are taking on there.
Well, absolutely. And one of the neat things about it, too, is that, for example, if you went on there and you did not see the Center for Compassionate Recovery on there yet, you could add it, actually. It's something that can grow organically, where if I went on and I lived in a certain community and I checked it out and I said, oh, my gosh, well, I know of 4 other resources that aren't listed here, I can actually add them. And they won't show up immediately because they do go through a slight review process, not a rating process, but we do make sure people aren't putting silly things on there or anything.
Right.
But it can grow organically. And, I'd encourage anybody who's listening to go to facingaddiction.org. You'll find the Addiction Resource Hub under Resources. And take a look and see what's in your community. And if you see things missing, help us help others, right? Go on there and add key resources that we haven't gotten on there yet. Because that is, as you can imagine, a huge project and a very long-term project to build that tool.
Yeah, I would imagine. You mentioned before the SAMHSA treatment locator, and there was a news story about a year or two back by Channel 8 in Connecticut, and they looked at that treatment locator, and they found it to be woefully inaccurate. So I hope someone's doing it. I'm sure you guys are doing a better job than that.
Well, it is. SAMHSA does tremendous work. It is, unfortunately, there are certain bad apples in the treatment industry, and because of that, it can be very challenging, really, to keep databases like that up to date. But we're certainly doing our best, and
right.
We'd like to set a very high standard in terms of the tools and resources that we're putting out there for folks.
Michael, I noticed also there was there was a Surgeon General's report that came out on addiction. Did you want to talk about that at all?
I would love to. Yeah, no, it was last November. The now former Surgeon General, Dr. Vivek Murthy, was the author. His office was the author of a report in which we were actually the exclusive nonprofit co-sponsor in the report's release, partnering with the Office of the Surgeon General. The report is called "Facing Addiction in America," the Surgeon General's report on alcohol, drugs, and health. And I mean, this is a landmark report. I mean, think back to the 60s when the Surgeon General at the time put out the report that really, for the first time, highlighted all of the potential health problems associated with tobacco use. That's exactly what this report is, in regards to substance use disorders. And, let no one tell you that, somehow addiction is, a moral failing. This is our top doctor. This is America's doctor who came out and said, no, this is a critical healthcare issue. It can be prevented. There are evidence-based prevention practices that can help us prevent more and more people from suffering. And there are different treatment options. There are different recovery resources. There are solutions to this problem. And what it's going to take is the public will to execute those solutions.
Yeah, I think there is a great public will right now. In fact, we have some public will sitting in here in our studio, which we're going to get to later. But Alicia and I were just commenting on the number of sort of grassroots movements that are popping up all around because, I think that's wonderful, but I also think that's a sign that people are frustrated that there aren't the, organized governmental or private resources to address this epidemic that, if we compared it to any other illness, we would see a different response. And that's what I feel in my gut. And I think a lot of people agree with that.
I think that's absolutely correct. And I think it's important to note that are we making progress? Sure. Getting things like the Comprehensive Addiction Recovery Act to become law is progress. Getting $1 billion last year from the 21st Century Cures Bill, that's progress. Are we making progress fast enough? Try telling any family that has gone through that tragic loss, which, we are now, as President Trump's recent and his commission on the opioid crisis said in their recent interim report that they put out on this problem, overdoses in this country now equate to a 9/11 style, the same amount of deaths as 9/11 every 3 weeks. I mean, we're looking at a public health crisis of epic proportions here, and we've got to do something about it. And that means getting people more access to treatment. It means implementing better evidence-based prevention practices in communities across the country. These are programs that study after study are showing have proven degrees of effectiveness, to promoting recovery supports, and that's something that Alicia and I have talked about before, and promoting multiple, as our agenda says, promoting the idea that there are multiple pathways of recovery. I'm a person in long-term recovery for myself. I happen to have found recovery through a combination of inpatient treatment, outpatient treatment, and ongoing participation in a 12-step fellowship. That's how I did it. It doesn't mean that's how everybody else has to do it. But to remind people that there are over 23 million people in this country who are living in recovery from this issue. This is a problem, but there are solutions. And getting the solutions out there is our number one task at hand, I believe.
Yeah, Michael, last week on our radio show, our theme that we talked about was really the issue of the quality and availability of treatment, because it seems in Connecticut the focus of attention for the opiate epidemic is understandably preventing death through Narcan and making some changes to prescription practices. All those things make perfect sense and should be done, but there's really not a lot of focus on the quality and/or availability of treatment. And it's very, from my perspective, that's a very frustrating thing. It's almost like treatment is, no one really quite believes in treatment, and they're not going to put their resources there. And right. And it's really frustrating.
I think that there are obviously, as I mentioned before, I think one of the challenges that can exist sometimes is that for all of the amazing people in the treatment industry, and as I mentioned, I'm a alum of an inpatient treatment facility. My experience in treatment saved my life, frankly.
Right.
But there are also, everyone hears a bad story at some point too, and it's terrible when you hear them because it denigrates the amazing work that so many people are doing across the country right now too. So, I think, increasing access to treatment is obviously a huge issue. For no other healthcare issue, as my friend John Shinholzer, who you may know down in Virginia, would say, when you go into a 7-Eleven, if you're told, come back to treatment we'll have a bed for you in 3 weeks, that somehow is acceptable. But then when you go out and you're waiting your 3 weeks and you rob a 7-Eleven to get money for your fix, guess what? You get government service right away. You're not told that you have to wait 3 weeks.
No
to
waiting.
jail, right?
Service on demand. The issue of expanding treatment, I fought so hard. Well, I verbally fought with some of our politicians to begging them to please, vote against this thing. But I don't know if you recall, but not too long ago they expanded the number of I call them clients or patients that a physician can have if they're prescribing Suboxone. They increased the number from 100 to 275 in an effort to increase opportunities for people to get care. The issue I have with that is that I think I figured it out that it equates to like 4 minutes a patient if you don't take bathroom breaks. And we have to have quality care. You can't just, Suboxone, medication assisted therapy. It's not. It was never meant to treat a complicated, psychosocial issue, biopsychosocial issue with just medication. And so expanding the access to treatment that way is even I'm against that as much as I want people to get care. That's not care. That's that's writing scripts.
Well,
as
I
fast
think
as you can.
again, this is actually a topic area, medically assisted treatment, that the Surgeon General's report talks about at length. And I think that what more and more, I think what we're seeing more and more is that medication assisted treatment coupled with several other things can be an incredibly effective way
absolutely
to treat with substance. Right. But with other components to it as well.
Right. But you can't. You can't couple if you have 275 patients. You can't coordinate with therapists. You just can't do anything if you have 275 patients.
Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off there, Michael. Did we lose him? I think we lost him.
Yeah.
I'm sure he's going to call back. Okay.
That was fun.
No, he's a very engaging guy, and I love it.
Bye, Michael. Bang.
Yeah, right. If you're out there, Michael, we still want to talk to you. So in the space between now and Michael calls back, I will ask. There's quite a few people in the studio. We didn't get a chance to even acknowledge that because Michael called as soon as the show started, and so I'm going to ask people to go ahead around the room and we have some guests here. Introduce themselves, and of course our lovely co-hosts. Everybody already knows you, Alicia.
Alicia.
You have to say it that way, yes. So we're going to go around the room and introduce ourselves, if you don't mind. If that's okay.
Talk right into the mic.
Right in there.
Bonnie Lagonki, board member of the Roadway for Hope, Connecticut.
Welcome, Bonnie.
Thank you.
Christine Gagnon, executive board member for the Roadway Hope, Connecticut.
Thank you.
Sue Willett, president of the Roadway of Hope, Connecticut.
Kate Heidel-Haru, board member of Roadway of Hope, Connecticut.
David Willett, vice president of the Roadway of Hope, CT.
And I'm Lynn.
Don't forget Lynn.
Hi, Lynn.
I like your headphones, Lynn.
Thank you.
So yes, we have a crew of special guests here today, and the Roadway of Hope Connecticut is one of those grassroots organizations we were just talking about. People who are determined to make a difference, not sitting back and waiting for the government to solve our problems, but rather taking an active role in doing so. I am going to ask Sue and Dave to talk about how the Roadway of Hope came to be and about what your overall mission here in Connecticut is.
I guess maybe we should start with what our mission statement is. I think that kind of
Okay.
has a great impact on
Okay.
what we do. But our mission statement is to promote hope, education, and advocacy for those who are unable to help themselves, to bring awareness to substance use disorder with dignity, understanding, and acceptance.
That's quite a lovely mission statement. And maybe we can get into also sort of logistically and concretely how you deliver that.
We do that by supporting parents and people in recovery, families, helping them navigate through the system of pain and heartache, and try to give them hope that no matter where their child or their loved one, I should say, is in this realm of this horrific disease, that they can recover as a family, that they can, with the support and the guidance, that they can, that there is hope for them, and that there is hope for, their loved ones.
You're probably aware of this, but if not, I'll just tell you that hopefulness is a measurement, one of the highest correlated measurements of clinical success. Therapeutic rapport with the therapist is probably the number one, and number two is hopefulness. The more hope you instill in your clients, the better they get. And so I'm sure that applies for family members who are struggling as well. So whatever that you're doing that provides hopefulness has got to have a strong clinical effect. Sue and I and the rest of the gang were out in the parking lot earlier, and I was talking to them about kind of this issue about how we instill hopefulness in new clients coming into my practice. I routinely will take the time to tell each new client that I'm meeting with individually that they are in the right place, and that if they follow the structure of our program and if they continue to go at it no matter what happens, that I give them a guarantee that they will recover from opiate addiction. And that's a pretty big, that's a tall order. But I can back it up. And when they come in the group, and everyone in the group, and Alicia has experienced this herself, everyone in the group is saying, I have 12 months clean, I have 14 months clean, I have 9 months clean. And you hear that, I see their response, and it's a big bump up in their hopefulness. If these people can do it, then I can do it. And so I know firsthand how important that is. And I'm sure that the work that you're doing is having a huge impact.
I do have to say that I like how you guys talk about it's not just about the person suffering from the substance use disorder, but also the other side, the family aspect of it. A lot of the times, a lot of the concentration is on us individuals with the disorder and not so much that other side. So I like to hear that,
It's a very lonely place to be.
Yeah. Yep.
I also understand you have a big event coming up, correct?
Yes, we do. This Saturday at Hubbard Park in Meriden, Connecticut, we are having our second annual Walk and Rally for Hope. And it will be a day filled with live music, food, craft. I shouldn't say crafts, but different things to do. We're going to have Home Depot there for children. It's a family event. It's an event for people in recovery, both families and the person suffering from substance use disorder. We're going to be doing a recovery quilt. We have a lot of resources. Different NA will be there, and other recovery places will be there giving out resources. We're going to do clean time counter. Help me, girls.
I'd like to list the bands, if that's okay.
Yeah.
Matt Butler, Dizzy Fish. We're going to have Creamery Station, Blues Alley. Number 9.
And RGB.
Oh, an RGB band. It's going to be a great day.
Nice. And that's all free.
Yes.
It's all free.
That's all free.
It's a day of hope and recovery, and that for families, for anybody that wants to come. But it was an amazing day last year, and this year it's quite a bit bigger.
It is. We planned that event last year, less than 2 months. We had over 600 people. So Saturday we expect over 1,000 people to come. So we might be a small group, but we're loud.
Yeah.
I like that.
Candlelight vigil in the evening.
Yep. Yeah. So.
Well, I actually, yes, I know that my practice is going to have a table.
Yes, you are.
And where our marketing person's going to be there, and I think I'm going to come on up and
Great.
join the festivities a little
Awesome.
bit. So,
Or you're not going to go on vacation this weekend?
hey. You don't-
It's just the feeling last year, and I'm quite sure that the rest of us will agree with me. It was just an amazing feeling that day.
I imagine.
I mean,
Uplifting, yeah.
I was a little into a year of my recovery with what had happened to my family, and just the feeling of hope and love coming from everybody was just so amazing. I've met so many amazing people on this journey. I mean, these people sitting right here, I don't think I would have survived if it hadn't been for these people sitting at this table.
Well, I mean, that's what it's about, right? We
Yeah.
recover family and the individual to have fun and to enjoy life and learn how to live it. And I think that's something that it sounds like your rally does,
Yes.
you know?
It's really nice too, because what it is it's a bunch of people that come together that most of us don't know each other, and you have 600 plus people in a wide open area that feel free to cry or laugh or sing or be goofy or do whatever, and to have all those people around that you don't know and share all those different types of emotion, and have one day where nobody is standing in judgment of you, and there's no stigma, and nobody's looking at you like you have 7 heads, and we all have that one common bond. And if we would just all be kinder to each other every day of the week, like we are on that one day, everybody would stand on stronger footing, and what a wonderful place it would be. What a wonderful example we would be to each other.
You know, I say that addiction leads us to isolation, but recovery is in the community, you know,
Absolutely.
and that's where it's found, that social connection that you make with others.
That's right. And I constantly push that on my clients because, unfortunately, in some ways, Suboxone is so effective. Thank you, Pete. I wasn't in the mic again. I push that social aspect so often because my clients will come in, they'll get on Suboxone, and their cravings are gone, their withdrawals are gone, and they start thinking they're all, better. And I know that the next step is going to have to be the social bonds, because when they come off Suboxone, which we strive to get most or all of our clients off Suboxone, that piece has to be in place if they're going to stay clean. And you guys heard of the rat park experiment, right? Have you heard of that?
Oh, I love that.
No.
All right, I'm going to tell it
Yeah.
because you have to hear this
Yep.
so it pertains. So back in the 50s, 60s, where behavioral psychologists were studying addiction, they set up this sort of well-known experiment where they put a rat in a cage by himself and 2 bottles of water, one laced with cocaine, one plain, regular water. And so the rat invariably would discover the cocaine-laced water and would drink that water literally till he gave himself a heart attack. And that happened every time without fail. But then recently someone had the brilliant idea to look at that experiment and say, well, wait a minute, the rat was stuck alone in a cage. That cocaine was his only source of pleasure. And so they did the same experiment, but put rat in a rat park. With
Wheels, yep.
wheels, and cheese, and all those cliche things that rats like, but most importantly, other rats, right? And they gave the rats the same choice with the water and the cocaine and the regular. Well, incredibly, the rats, of course, favored the cocaine water in the beginning, but they would sort of fade off of that, and not a single rat drank that water to death. And so having that connection, that community, even for rats, was preventative for, death from addiction.
This was something too, even with the veterans from Vietnam. the same concept. People were extremely concerned with their veterans coming home and having substance use disorders and heroin. It was this big concern. And then they came home and they noticed that once they were home and with their family and community, that it was, they didn't,
Yes,
Right.
that's right. That's right. Based on what you would expect, that it should have been much worse, right?
Right, exactly.
Right, yeah.
Not that they all did it.
Yeah, and even that is also behind there's a big program for vets who have trauma getting matched up with therapy dogs, and that's our senator from Michigan, Al Franklin, behind that one, and I love him. He's hilarious.
I know, I like him.
And so that's been proven to be very effective. So even interspecies connection is therapeutic, right? So.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So what else do you guys offer? I know we were talking earlier about some of the new programs you're hoping to offer, possibly. No?
Well, we're going to continue. We do get involved with the HEAT program, which is based from the U.S. Attorney's Office. HEAT stands for Heroin Education Action Team, and we go into the high schools throughout the state of Connecticut, us and several other moms, and discuss what could happen when kids make that wrong choice. And so we've been involved with that, and we also talk at night to the parents. So we're going to continue that. We're in the infancy of our nonprofit, and our hopes are to continue to raise money for various resources. Some of the resources we're looking to be able to fund is helping families get plane tickets to see their loved ones. Unfortunately, Connecticut, we do have it is a crisis with the lack of treatment that's available here in our state. So a lot of people are in treatment far away. So we are going to try to be able to get the connection of family to their loved ones. Also, once people get out of treatment, if they don't have any real source of income, it's hard to start those first steps to get into sober living. So hopefully we can help to be a bridge in that. We also are very active in our community as far as working at homeless shelters. We just did a blanket drive a couple of weeks ago. We're going to continue to do that. And then lastly, scholarships. Again, this is a family disease, and a lot of times siblings are kind of put aside because the focus is on the person who is suffering from that substance use disorder. So our hope is to offer scholarships not only to someone that is in recovery to get a leg in, maybe take a few college courses, but also give that opportunity to a family member.
That meant absolutely nothing.
Oh, I was like...
Everyone's looking like, what was that noise?
I thought it was the gong from the Gong Show.
Time's up.
Time's up. But yeah, so that's what we're doing, and we're open to ideas. We are community-based. We're throughout the state of Connecticut. We're hoping to bring more members on, grow our board with more people. But we have a lot of support, and it just exploded. Mm-hmm. Facing addiction, which we were just talking to Michael King from there, that's been 2 years. That's only 2 years really in infancy, and they're amazing. Yeah. Us in Connecticut, there's a couple of groups that we're very familiar with that are alongside us and kind of do the same thing, and we partner any way we can because we're stronger in numbers. So
absolutely. Mm-hmm. Let me ask you a question. You guys have any doctors on that HEAT team to answer any of the technical questions?
Generally, no, we don't. Mostly what it involves is someone from the DEA, someone from the U.S. Attorney's Office, local law enforcement, and a politician. Yeah. So, yeah, maybe we do need a doctor on that
team. Well, just let me know. I'd love to.
Yeah, no, that would be great.
Do they bring people in recovery also?
In infancy too, and that's what they're trying to do. It's kind of hard to get people, but they're looking for people in recovery to talk.
I can bring people. I can bring people. I got people.
Well, you can make a connection with them at the rally.
I was going to say they'll be there Saturday.
You got me too. Don't
right.
About me.
Lynn
right
with the pink.
You can't wear those headphones.
I know.
Otherwise, you're good to go. No, we got lots of people. Yeah.
I love though the the helping people get into sober houses, because I see this a lot where people don't have money to get it unless the basic needs, but sometimes things happen, they don't meet it, or it doesn't happen in time, and then they're out on the street after they get out of a program, and it's got to be we have to set things up so there is a continuum,
right?
A
laid out roadmap of a continuum of care from A, B, C. If you're in residential, sober living, outpatient treatment connected to that, it's got to be a continuum.
Well, unfortunately, insurance companies don't pay for sober living.
No, they don't.
Right.
And a lot of the families have already exhausted all resources, if they even have families involved.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Like some of us don't.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, some of us don't.
And I hate to say this, but also sometimes it's also, even if you have the resources, finding a really wholesome, sober living environment can be a challenge.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry.
No,
One of the things that we did also, or that we've started to do, is we've vetted some of the sober homes and some of the facilities in Connecticut as well, and made a list of them, so people can call us and we can give them names of places that we've gone to and visited and actually seen. Because one of the things that we found out, especially because because families have to send their loved ones out of the state, is anybody with today's technology can make their facilities look like anything they want to.
Absolutely.
And then you get there and on the brochure it looks like you're going to like the most beautiful place. Exactly. And you get there and it's like...
It's an old motel.
Exactly. That you wouldn't let your animal stay at. Right. So we've visited quite a few places, and we don't endorse anywhere. But we will say, we've been here, we've seen the facility, we've met the people, we've spoken with them, and give them a list of places to call. So when you're in the heat of the moment and you're on an emotional roller coaster and you're not thinking clearly, doing that legwork is hard, and you sometimes don't even know where to start. So we can sort of take that step for you. Absolutely. And at least give you some numbers to call. And then you can, after talking with these people, you can make that determination as to where you might want to check out yourself.
Yep. I called 1-800-ADDICTION, and let me tell you.
Yeah, that was
wasn't so pleasant.
Yeah, that was one thing we learned in the CCAR's Recovery Coach Academy, to not only... we have resource packets we make, but to actually visit the places, to get a person's phone number, to if there are buses, if it's on a bus line, if there are places to be able to be employed nearby. Those are things people are looking for,
Exactly.
And based on who your recovery is what you recommend.
And it's unfortunate that anybody can open a sober living house.
Well, in Connecticut, though, there's... soon they're going to make them become certified, and I know CCAR is working hard to go to those non-DEMIS, homes to certify them and get them ready for that process. So, it's something.
Yeah, I mean, a certification process is sort of inevitable, I would think. And it's not really that complex, right?
No.
You do drug testing.
Well, like I said, though, the other problem is, though, a lot of with certification, like the DEMIS-approved sober houses, there's certain things that you have to follow there that, again, I'm a big advocate of the multiple pathways. And for it to be mandatory to do 12-step... wonder if that's not what you want. You know what I mean? Wonder if that's not your pathway. Maybe that doesn't work for you. And
yeah, that doesn't make sense. Why DEMIS is
old thinking.
It's old thinking. That's all it is.
We're still stuck in that.
That's right.
And our old thinking didn't find the solution. So I don't know why they think that's going to be the solution today.
Well,
Side note.
Yeah. Don't get me started on old thinking.
I know. I'm sorry.
Addiction treatment. Right? So I was kind of going off on that last week.
Yeah.
But everything that your organization is doing, and you're doing quite a variety of things, is, it really reflects what people will do when they feel like they're I hate to say, their government's sort of letting them down.
Mm-hmm. They're pissed.
They're pissed. And it's so great to see what you're doing, but it's sort of, in a way, I wish you didn't have to. I wish there were more proactive programs. And I have done a little research looking around New England of what the other states are doing, and most of them are not too far ahead of Connecticut, but Vermont, they're doing some pretty amazing things, and they're not very far away. And I don't understand why we can't look at some of the more progressive states and begin to emulate them. Vermont, at one time, had the worst opiate, or they still in some ways do, but they had so many people that needed care that weren't getting it. And in a couple-year period, they reduced that down to nearly zero. And they have a fantastic model where private practice doctors get support from publicly funded teams of nurses and counselors. So if you're a private practitioner like myself and my partners, you get these this team of a nurse and a counselor assigned to you depending on the certain number of patients or clients that you have, and so therefore they're creating that kind of holistic approach, and they're enticing private practitioners to treat Suboxone, because many of them don't want to treat addiction and use Suboxone, because many of them don't want to do that because they don't know anything about addiction. And so why are they going to go down that road when they don't know what to do when their clients struggle? And they need support from the other side. And so Vermont has this great progressive process where they do that. I mean, they're not perfect. There's some things I wish Vermont were doing differently, but they at least have a model and an approach. And you can go on the website and see the incredible progress they've made in addressing, getting people into care in the last few years. It was staggeringly bad just a few years ago. So, hey, maybe we can learn something,
Yeah, most definitely.
Excuse me.
And Alicia, you do something. You would do something else with Michael's program too, right?
Yeah, I do the Multiple Pathways Working Group. So we're putting together a pamphlet with the multiple pathways of recovery. Yeah.
I know you throw that term around. I think there are people out there who probably don't know what that means.
Again, there's not one way of treatment, or there's not one way to find recovery anymore. There's many different ways, and sometimes they intertwine with each other, and sometimes it's, you choose one alone. But like inpatient treatments and medication assisted treatment, that's a pathway of recovery. Or there's faith-based recovery like Celebrate Recovery, 12-step fellowship like AA and NA. They also have, refugee recovery, which is a mindfulness Buddhist-based recovery, smart recovery. There's a lot of different ways. Art therapy, music therapy. The list goes on. Natural recovery, which is just someone who just kind of self-change.
Haven't heard of that one.
That's actually the most popular pathway of recovery, believe it or not.
And now, too, there's home-based recovery treatment.
Yep.
Yeah.
Just entered Connecticut.
Yep.
Yeah. You're talking about the
aware
model.
Yeah.
It's a great model. It really makes sense. Bring it in, it's sort of an alternative to residential treatment. It's intensive at-home treatment where, or in the community treatment. So people will be, again, there's a team, nurse, case manager, therapist, etc., and a person has a real wraparound program with intense connection with multiple staff members and then sort of recovery coach-like person, recovery assistant, I believe they call them, RAs.
Sober coaches.
Sober coach, yeah. And they have it's a long program too. It's 12 months.
Yeah.
So they stick with you. And I actually have quite a few of their clients, at my practice, and I love getting referrals from them because I know I have this, these people to reach out to if my clients struggling.
You have peeps.
Yeah, I got peeps. It's instant peeps, and so that's always a huge advantage, as a therapist, where I'm sort of limited within my scope of practice. But yeah, that's a great model, and private insurance is starting to pay for that and recognize that. So, because there are logistical issues with residential treatment, especially ones that are out of state and so forth. And, I think the sort of in-home alternative makes a lot of sense. If someone can learn to stay sober in their life, then they're not in danger of losing all of the benefits of treatment as they struggle through transition back to their lives.
Not even that. Where you go, you go. You know, I tried going to California to rehab to get better, and I ended up using in California.
There's drugs in California?
There are.
I did not know that.
Yeah, and I ended up using, you know, there. You know, it doesn't, you know, so.
I mean, I think part of it, though, is here, and I guess most places, but I can only speak for Connecticut because that's where we are. It's that need when somebody's ready.
Right, have to be on it right at that moment. Yeah.
And that's where we're lacking
absolutely
so horribly.
And you know what? I remember waiting. I called CVH, I think, and you know, the waiting list, it was like 3 weeks. I had to call like every day. I'm not going to call every by the point. I called maybe for like a week, and then after that, it just like I know. Well, yeah, that was pretty. But then I gave up. And then that's most places are like that. Where okay, we'll call back tomorrow. And it's, you're not gonna.
No, and then if you do get lucky enough to get a bed, they keep you 3 to 7 days, and if there's no place else, they put you on the street.
Yeah,
I mean, setting them up for failure. If there's or come back in a month and we'll have some sort of treatment for you.
The other issue I know for me was I was on Husky A, and there are not a lot of places that take Husky A. That was a big issue. I had there were a couple places were my options, you know, and again, those beds are hot commodities because there's not a lot of them that are covered for Husky A, and you know I got lucky, but many people don't.
Right.
And unfortunately for us, we have private insurance, and I couldn't find a place in Connecticut so we had to pay out of network to send my kid 1,500 miles away.
Yeah.
Right.
And then you have to worry about Florida. You're hearing, you know, everything. Yeah, you got to worry about that then, you know.
I recently had a client who was in a program in Orlando, and he said 40% of the clients there were from Connecticut, and about 2 to 4 a day came in.
Yeah,
so it's pretty tough.
It only goes to show you the lack of treatment in the state of Connecticut.
Exactly.
Yeah,
I mean 40% from Connecticut alone. That makes no sense. Like, you know, but unfortunately, that's why.
Yep. That's actually a good point. I don't, you know, I was on my father's insurance for, you know, quite a while, but then when I came of age to not be, and I was on state insurance, you know, I really only know about state insurance, you know, state run. I don't even really know how that private sector works. You know what I mean?
There are very few private inpatient rehab centers in the state of Connecticut, and the good ones don't accept any insurance. So,
of course not.
Yeah, right.
It's my way out of pocket, or you don't go.
Exactly.
You're spending your retirement fund.
That's the thing. That's a big, huge,
on a
and most
possibility.
And most of the people are on state insurance. They're either coming out of jail and this and
that's the largest. Unfortunately, that's the largest. That's the largest group in terms of the insured, and that's why I started my practice. Actually, I used to only take Anthem Blue Cross when I started, but I got 5 calls a day from people who had state insurance with nowhere to go. So then I started a second practice, not exclusively for people with state insurance, but we do take state insurance. Probably 3/4 of my clients have state insurance.
But I think when you look at the statistics, like you said, most are on state insurance. It's because most of the places, it's very hard with the state of Connecticut and the insurance that most of us have isn't accepted at most of the places.
Right.
So they we're sending our kids out of state.
Right. That's why.
And
even to find a primary doctor too. Just to find a primary doctor that takes it, it's ridiculous.
Yeah, we have to be real resourceful helping our clients get those kind of resources. And you mentioned before about the timing, like when someone's ready. And I set things up from the beginning with my practice. If someone calls us, you know, someone's on the phone, you know, within, if not answering the phone, pretty much almost immediately. So my my practice will get calls and someone's live picking up that phone, and then after hours that's rolled over to my cell phone. So if someone calls, we're on the phone with them and we're getting them into treatment within a day or so, and that is always just greeted with shock, but that's how it has to be,
Yeah.
And if you want to help people, you can't tell them with opiate addiction that try back in a couple of weeks. They might as well be put your practice on the moon.
And it's not a Monday through Friday 9 to 5 disease.
No, that's why all of my clients have my cell phone, and the phone's always rolled over to my cell phone because, you have to be available.
They can't even wait 2 hours in the ER.
No.
Right.
Yeah. Let alone 2 days.
Yeah. Right.
Right.
That's very true.
Well, there was a situation. My son, in April, I had called a hospital, and I won't name the hospital,
Okay.
but I called the hospital, and they told me to call the crisis line at this hospital. I explained it was for an opiate detox. My son was ready to go. Went, called. They said, "Oh, yep, just bring him in. We'll decide whether he's going to go on a medical floor or a mental health floor. But come in. We take care of opiate detox."
Mm-hmm.
Specifically, I said opiate detox.
Right.
Went to the hospital. I saw triage. I saw the front desk explaining again to every single one of those people that it was for an opiate detox. Finally get into a room. I was in that emergency room for 4 hours. PPRN came in and said, "We don't do opiate detox." My son, at that point, that was a Saturday. Monday afternoon, my husband came home and he had overdosed. And he had been sent to the hospital, and they told me he wasn't going to make it at that time. This was April. He was in intensive care for over 2 weeks. And he was sent, as soon as he was done, to Rhode Island to inpatient rehab because there was nowhere in Connecticut. Mm-hmm. And I had to, as a mom, thankfully, I'm thankful that I've had the resources and the education. But my God, another mom that's never even dealt with this before, there was no one in that hospital that could even direct where to go. I was able to do that. Unfortunately, my son did pass away a month ago from tainted heroin overdose. So, it's so important that when someone is ready, it has to happen. And to hear that your practice, you're right on it, because it's life or death, any moment. Yeah.
Accessing the system of care in Connecticut is an absolute mess.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
It's really just luck of the draw. It's if you have a good support team behind you helping you persist, and it's really it's a tangled mess. Mm-hmm. And I have heard all kinds of crazy stories that defy logic.
And what is discouraging is after talking with the Commissioner of Mental Health and Addiction Services and our politicians, they don't get it. So it's going to have to be a grassroots situation.
This is a news break now.
Peter. It's funny you bring that up, though, because I remember when I went into a facility to try to get help, and they told me that I wasn't sick enough yet. Mm-hmm. And I heard that a couple times from the same. I wasn't sick enough yet, but I could go into their longer term, and I'm like, no, I'm going to be with. Like, I'm not. What do you mean I'm not sick enough? And I ended up going down to First Step in Bridgeport. An hour later, I was there, and I was sick enough to be taken there, though. Like, well, it made no sense. How was I sick enough there and not at the other?
Right.
Of course, First Step couldn't take me that night because I was on methadone 2 weeks ago, or 2 weeks prior, and they had to call the clinic. Then that was like a whole nother thing. They had to call the clinic and verify that I was off of it by that time, and they were closed, and then I had to wait till the next day. It was a whole thing.
It's one obstacle after another, and
I made it, though.
yeah, you made it, but
Yeah,
2 years
there's
later.
people that don't.
right. But
Yeah.
look what you had to overcome just to get your foot in the door, right?
Yeah, and there were times, like I said, prior in my 10 years of using that, I didn't stick to it, where I would have given up after the first try, and that would have been it.
Yeah. Out in California, where I lived and worked for a while, they had this thing called no wrong door policy. And wherever you showed up in the system, anyone in the system would escort you to the right place. And, that is how we should be doing recovery.
Yeah.
Do they still have that
Yes.
policy?
Yes, they do.
They do?
Yes.
Because unfortunately, here, that 800 number, you'll be on hold for 6 hours.
Or they don't answer?
If
or they
they
hang
So,
up on
yeah,
you?
they don't answer. When I
Or
was
then they tell you, you have private insurance, we don't help you. Click.
Yeah. I know when I was trying to help my boyfriend, he passed away, unfortunately. And I was calling the rehabs because we had a domestic issue and he went away to jail. And I know he was hurting in there, and we were trying to get him into rehabs and whatnot. And me calling, oh, you can't call, he has to call.
Yeah.
I was like, but he can't call. I mean, I'm the one on the outside trying to do something for him. And it was just a mess. Just a mess.
Yeah, there's so many rules that when you think about the clinical rationale for that rule, there is none.
No.
But because there's so many layers of those rules that make no sense, you're bound to run into one of them. You don't have enough. You're not physically sick enough yet. We don't do opiate detox unless you have another substance in you, but not benzos. We don't do benzos. I mean, my God, you have to be the perfect client at the perfect time to get it.
Yeah.
And you got to lie and cheat your way in. It's
Yeah.
just-
Well, it was funny because at that
Insane.
hospital, when that situation happened, a nurse came up to me and said, well, you could try tomorrow. Just tell everyone that he's trying to hurt himself. I said, he's putting chemicals in his
He is
body.
hurting himself. He's
Duh.
already,
Yeah.
yeah.
Exactly.
Or tell them to drink.
Yes.
Something like that's a big one.
Yeah.
Yep, that's always a big one. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm drunk. Yeah.
Or benzos. Yep, get them drunk.
Yeah, I actually had we had someone on the show, Alicia number 2, and I won't name the detox. She was in detox for alcohol dependency, and she also was recovering from opiate addiction. And they did not continue her on her Suboxone. And they let her go into withdrawal from Suboxone while they were treating her for alcohol dependency, and she wound up leaving. Of course she did, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that makes zero sense. When I found that out, I was so frustrated,
Yeah.
that how many ridiculous reasons can we make people not want to be in treatment?
Right.
A lot of that, though, too, again, it's insurance. Do you know what I mean? They codes, and you have to have a certain. A lot of that's what this is based off of.
Somewhat, some of that, but I also like what you said. A lot of it's sort of old thinking.
Well,
It's policies and procedures that were put in place based on clinical practices that didn't make sense at the time and still don't, but haven't been changed because that's how people think. And it's also, I'll say, opiate addiction. So many people do not understand the physiological component of it. Do not understand how to treat that. Going into withdrawal is a trauma. And I treat all my clients' potential withdrawal as a potential trauma. And, if you're going to go into a program and they're not looking at it that way, and they're going to let you be in withdrawal, you're not going to stay. And if they're going to give you less Suboxone than you need and say, well, we give everyone 4 milligrams, that's it. But I'm doing 3 bundles a day. That's not coming close to touching me. Well, you're drug seeking. That kind of stuff. It's just, really not understanding how Suboxone is meant to be utilized.
You know what, though? I also see over-prescribing.
Well, overprescribing. You remember? I was talking
Not just of just in general.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. a lot of times too, I don't know if you found this, but people come out of residential treatment, they have 7 new medicines.
My son came home from Florida on 21 different medications.
Yeah,
21, really?
That's what I'm saying. There's a lot of
700 milligrams of gabapentin.
Don't even get me started about that gabapentin. I just wrote a paper on that. I can't with
2,700 milligrams. I thought he was high. I'm
Yeah.
like, he came off the plane. I'm like, you just came from rehab. What the heck is going on?
Right.
Stumbling, slurring his
and
words.
especially for gabapentin has been known to be helpful with alcohol withdrawal, but for opioid use disorder, gabapentin it shouldn't be prescribed.
My son, it was alcohol,
higher,
benzos, and heroin, so he was
So then
addicted to all
it's-
three.
yeah.
But 21 different medications when he came home from rehab.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
That's not high quality care.
No.
No, just drug them up and send them
Yeah,
back home,
that's-
basically,
yeah.
and let you deal with it.
Yeah, right.
You know?
That's a whole nother subject, though, huh?
Yeah.
Huh, Dr. Mark Bono.
Exactly. So we're getting close to the end of our time here. I want to make sure that we're really close, huh, Pete? Yeah. So I want to make sure just one more time to talk about the event that's coming up, so that people.
Hubbard Park on Saturday from 2 to 8. The Roadway of Hope is having our rally and to walk around the lake. So come on out and see the music and have a good time.
And
get some resources.
Do you have a website?
Yes, we do.
Yeah.
It's www.theroadwayofhopect.com, and the same for our Facebook page.
I love what you guys are doing.
Yeah.
Thanks so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you guys
Thank you.
for everything you're doing.
Thanks.
Okay. Good night, Sullivan. Good night, Thea.
You're listening to PPRNradio.net. You may take a break, not us. We never take a break. We're always on. PPRNradio.net. Music 24/7.
Yeah, you rock the Josie look.